All right, welcome in everyone. I'm Travis. Excited today to get started alongside Helgi with our first series of the Frankly Saturdays. Today we had planned quite a few transfer rumors to go through and sort of the concrete leaks that we're seeing. I'll let you go ahead, Helgi, and get started with it.
Yeah, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you and continue what I had started with Dan, let's say 3 or 4 months ago. This is, of course, a new series because the previous one was more based on the actuality of the week, discussing the pre-match reviews, the previews of the games and then the reviews, predicting lineups and stuff like that had to do with more concrete stuff regarding the season. Well, now in absence of the games, we will talk about the transfer rumors, the key names that have been mentioned and linked with the club, and of course, it will be very exciting. And I'm very happy and honored to be here with you and to have a good chat about our beloved football club.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm really excited to be joining you. Looking forward to the chance, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to get into it. We've had a lot of activity going on these past few weeks, from really no news to just a barrage of news as far as transfer rumors go, and looks like there are quite a few sagas turning out, mainly with Raphinha. But yeah, we'll get into it. Looking forward to it.
Yes, same. Um, if we have to make a choice regarding the first names that we will have to talk about, I think it's good for us to start with the names that have been very strongly mentioned. And Raheem Sterling and Raphinha, in terms of our attacking additions, have been the two most spicy names, if we can use this sort of label, in the recent days.
Mm-hmm.
And it, so first of all, I'm trying to give my opinion on Sterling deal because he's the most likely player to be our first attacking addition, and why not our first signing of the summer. Um, from my own perspective, I have already expressed myself on Twitter regarding my opinion this possible deal. Uh, I can't deny that I have many doubts because of the fact that he is a player that has his positives, but there are also a lot of negatives that can't be ignored, at least in principle, such as the wages he has at City. We just got rid of Lukaku, who was somebody who could easily disrupt our wage structure if he kept on staying. And now we could add somebody in our team who can risk posing the same negative influence in this regard. So I hope it doesn't, but it's a worry of mine. His clinicality issues are also another problem. He has missed a lot of chances, even if we base on stats or also on eye test. There are many clear-cut chances that he hasn't managed to put away at City. He has equally scored a lot, but also we can't ignore this stuff, especially considering that one of the most frustrating things that we had last year as Chelsea fans was the inability of our forwards to hit double figures and not manage to put their chances away consistently. And I have my own misgivings regarding whether Sterling could solve this issue or not, or at least can contribute in solving this issue. Um, Also, the fact that he is on the let's say the the negative side of Man City's fans' opinion, because you can see many fans, Man City fans on Twitter, that seem from calm to happy about his possible departure. This worries me more than anything, because if you aren't rated by the fans of your actual club, how do you expect the fans of um, your probable next club to rate you imminently? But also there is a number of positives that he could add. However, for me, it's far from the exciting signing or attacking acquisition that I want to see.
Yeah.
There is a counter argument that I see from many Chelsea fans that say he is an immediate upgrade on our current attacking personnel. and I'm not denying that, but there is a point of trying to find the right profile, in my opinion, rather than just somebody who can be better than Werner, Pulisic in terms of consistency and attacking strength. And this is not what we have to seek. And also, I'm cautiously optimistic in the sense that it seems a Thomas Tuchel driven approach, and he sees him as a 9, as a flexible 9. So this is one of the only reasons that could make me optimistic. But in principle, I'm fearful about the signing, and I don't want to get carried away by the fact that, we are just signing somebody. I want us to sign the right names, because we shouldn't forget that we won the Champions League only 1 year ago, so we have to keep our standards high. It's not about being negative, it's about being ambitious about our club and about the prospects that we have to add. So Sterling is a name that could improve our attack, but I have many doubts. I have many red flags in my mind whether this deal is the right one or not. What do you think?
Yeah, so I have sort of a very similar line of reasoning as you. Is I have a lot of reservations about the Raheem Sterling move. Okay, looking at it within a vacuum, just looking at what he would offer us at within this Chelsea setup, and let's assume that Thomas Tuchel is not going to be changing any of his 3 at the back system, and how he's kind of using those wider players to tuck a little bit more in and have the fullbacks providing more depth than, or in this case, the wingbacks more depth than the actual wingers in many cases. My worry with this is that Raheem Sterling is a player that if we're going to be signing him to kind of replicate what he's been in the previous parts of his career, he's been somebody that, in my opinion at least, has thrived on chance creation to sustain the goals that he's had. And he's been in this Man City team that have created chances for fun, I mean, for years and years now with Pep Guardiola as their manager. So, and I really, another thing too, is I don't know if it's which is more to blame here in terms of this, but did Raheem Sterling take this massive step up after he got to Pep Guardiola? Or did he take this massive step just because he hit the right age, the peak of his career with Pep Guardiola? Or is it potentially both factors? And so I wonder, how is Raheem Sterling going to do outside of that Pep system? And then when you look at how the inside forwards are used within Tuchel's system, we currently have this chance creation issue. Is Raheem Sterling somebody that overly creates chances to solve this issue? Looking at his statistics from a percentile basis on a per 90 metric, as far as him getting in and making, just overall shot creating actions, he's not somebody that's falling into a really high percentile for attackers and wingers. However, how he'd be deployed a little bit more with Tuchel would be a little bit more like a forward than an out-and-out winger. And within that metric, he's doing much better in shot creating actions. But he's not an overly what you would think of as you hear people call creative players. I don't really think of Raheem Sterling as a creative player in that sense that we commonly seen described by fans. But what I do think that he can offer is something that we don't really have, which is, if you look at, Timo Werner, he has all of the pace, but not a lot of the technical ability that people will, routinely call out as his weakness in his game. We have Christian Pulisic, who can dribble really well, but the problem with him is that he attempts dribbling too much and he doesn't get his head up often enough. But perhaps Raheem Sterling, what he can offer from a dribbling stance is that he can get these one-on-ones and he can win these one-on-one battles. And in these low block scenarios that we see are so commonly faced against on the offensive zones, what we see is these low blocks get employed and we just start passing around in a U-shaped structure, waiting for something to open up, and it never really opens up. And I think that's because we lack wingers that are able to win one-on-one battles and play direct at, this low block that's being established by the defense in their own box. So I think that's where Raheem Sterling could really function well, in those little wide half spaces where he can maybe beat his man and get into the box and play those cutbacks that Tuchel is such a fan of. That's where I could see Raheem Sterling working well. But again, that's not necessarily what I think you imagine Raheem coming in and doing. I think that you're imagining him to be more of a goal-scoring threat relative to what we currently have in our wingers. And I think that what we currently have is probably an upgrade with Raheem. I think he's going to be an upgrade above what we currently have at our wingers. And I think the price being quoted is for what he's accomplished and all that he's won, it's a pretty fair price. I've heard about 45 million pounds with some add-ons. That's not a bad deal for somebody who's in the peak of their career, who has been in a system for all things, considered, is fairly similar to Thomas Tuchel in terms of being possession-based, more about, keeping the ball and getting these fast transitions when you're in the final zones to create these quick chances. I think that could work. But I think that my main thing is I don't think that Raheem Sterling will be enough on his own. And I think that if he's the only attacking player we sign, my concerns are that it's not going to be enough to alleviate the chance creation issues. And we're going to put too much of that onus on Raheem. And I just don't know if he can deliver that on his own. So I really do kind of think that he can be a great signing, but we probably need to have some other signings happening as well in the attacking zone that more directly address chance creation. That's kind of where I stand with Raheem Sterling. I think it can work, but I'm very cautiously optimistic that it will work.
Yeah, here's the thing, because I totally get your points, and it's more or less the balance take that I have regarding him. But the problem is that whenever I have watched him, let's say after 2018-19 season, when he was let's say more productive in terms of direct contribution than in the past two seasons, his main feature on the ball, as you said, so let's call it the ability to accelerate and take people on out wide, he has shown a kind of decline even in that aspect too. Even when I watch it with the national team, he's a bit exaggerated in the way he holds too much on the ball. Maybe this will change in our system, and especially if Tuchel uses this as a 9 and 3 at the back, he is obligated to release the ball earlier because of the positioning on the center, so that he has to play in tighter areas rather than having the license to take people on and go wide. But this is subject to Tuchel's choices with the system, and I wouldn't be surprised with us going with different choices next season regarding so due to the changes that we'll have in the personnel, both in defense and in attack. And Tuchel has shown his willingness to adapt with different kind of systems and tactical scenarios, so that Sterling, in principle, possesses this kind of versatility to be deployed in many areas in the last 20 meters of the pitch. But the problem is, as I said, the fact whether he is the right option that we should get in terms of goal scoring, first and foremost, because people have praised, especially on Twitter when I have come across different discussions, his goal scoring ability in the past seasons or even at Liverpool. And I think this is a bit misleading due to the fact that he misses a lot. And as you said, you made a great point with the fact that City have the personnel that could put it on a plate for him more often than not, while we have more or less the opposite scenario in terms of creating chances out of nothing. Maybe only Ziyech does that, but there is an unbalanced situation with him, because he is not the kind of Juan Mata profile in terms of the left-footed player. He is more of a one-dimensional winger who wants to keep width and cut and adjust his body to cross with his left into the far post, rather than adapting to different systems. So I hope that he proves me wrong, all in all, in terms of my doubts. I mean, Sterling, the price is excusable, even though he has one left in his contract. I would be worried if 55 million pounds would be the initial fee, but not. It's 45 plus 10, which is excusable for a player who has won, like whether we like it or not, has won silverware in his career and has contributed. So there are positives, but also I hope that he proves me wrong in many doubts that I have and I mentioned, and also you added them as the concerns that we may share regarding him.
Yeah.
And equally, I think that with other players around, he could be a good acquisition, and that reverse psychology has to be used in this case, because last year I was not only me, but I think the majority of the fan base was so excited by Lukaku's arrival, and he ended up as arguably or not the worst signing in club's history, based on the initial expectations. While for Sterling, there are many misgivings, and we hope that it will be the opposite, so he proves us wrong and becomes more or less a sort of Ben Chilwell kind of signing. Why not? That many people considered him as not the right profile, but he amazed us all and has become a fan favorite. So more or less, this is my take on Raheem Sterling. And shall we move on to the next name, right?
Yeah, we can. I just one thing to say that
yeah.
I was going to say to kind of caveat we were saying that if he's going to come here and have this goal scoring onus upon him at Chelsea, I think one thing to keep in mind, just looking here at his time at Manchester City. So again, one of the best attacking systems we've seen in the world the past 5 years. He really doesn't get that many shots on target per 90 minutes. And even when and just to like what I'm saying with here is that when you look at his it's now 6 seasons at Manchester City with Pep Guardiola as his manager in a system that's using those wingers, basically wide of the forward to create a lot of the goal scoring. His shots on targets per 90 since 2016 up until last season, it was 0.86, 1.15, 1.27, 1.22, 0.99, 1.06. So, I mean, he's never really been a high volume shooter ever. I mean, you're talking about one shot on target per match is about what he's averaging throughout his career at City. It's actually 1.02 is his average. So he's just above one shot on target per 90. So, I mean, he's really, based upon that, he does need to have a bigger, shot on target per 90 output if he's going to join us and be a goal scorer. Because additionally, his shot on target percentage is throughout Man City is 37.5, 37.9, 51.3, 37.5, 41.8, 46.3. He's not very accurate and he's not a high volume shooter. So that's going to have to improve if he's going to come to our system, because we are signing him to, in my opinion, I don't know why else we'd be signing him other than the fact that he's, somebody we know we're going to get, but we need more than what we've seen. We need more goal scoring. We need more chance creation. Is he going to provide those guys? I'm not sure. I don't know if he has that profile to do both of those things. And that's why I'm so strongly saying that I think if we get Sterling and a chance creation, winger or somebody like that, it could work well. But yeah, that's I just to kind of go. I just want to give those numbers to kind of support what you were saying a little bit more in terms of his goal scoring and lack of clinical play.
Yeah, very good. Before moving on to Raphinha's situation, I saw a comment in the chat saying that one of the reasons for liking Sterling is proven in Prem. It is a reason, but traditionally these things can go either way. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but in 2010 we missed out on Aguero deliberately just because of the fact that Torres was Premier League proven, and although Torres scored many important goals, he wasn't the profile that we expected him to score week in, week out. Aguero, who seemed raw at the time, ended up being one of the most illustrious strikers in Premier League history. So this is even Lukaku was Premier League proven in a sense. He didn't fulfill the expectations at Man United, but he scored goals at Everton. He had a successful loan at West Bromwich Albion. So I don't know whether Sterling has come to prominence and evolved due to Pep's coaching specifically, and as soon as he gets out of that habitat, he decreases his level of performances, or he will now, in a more, let's say, less rigid system in terms of the sophistication that Pep uses, he will be more free and will express himself better. So this is something that has to be seen. And if I want to be optimistic, I will say that I'm cautiously optimistic in the sense that Tuchel wants him and I believe that Tuchel has his reasons to maybe he raised his versatility, the fact that he, as you said, can take people along, can accelerate, can provide another kind of profile to what we currently have. But I highly doubt, as you said, and backed your argument with stats, that he will have the kind of direct approach to the opposition, will provide the kind of attacking edge that we massively need and desperately need now. So it has to be seen, but there is no point in trying to find negative aspects in advance because of the fact that we more or less know that he will wear our kit. So it's our moral obligation, in a sense, as a fan, to welcome him and to hope the best and hope that he proves us wrong in terms of the doubts we have.
Absolutely.
His name are coming to Chelsea. I highly doubt, due to his massive wages. He earns 700,000 and at PSG, and I think that we'll have a more cautious approach in terms of the wage structure. But who knows? Burnley wants a market signing, so there is a positive and negatives of that. But it's not the key moment to discuss about him because there have been only rumors. What do you say about Milinkovic-Savic? Guys, seriously needed in our team with 3 center backs. We need 2 center midfielders. So Kova and SMS can work perfectly. A DM isn't a must in our system. They can defend too. It would be an intriguing addition, but my point is that for this summer, I would like us to keep all of Jorginho, Kounde, and Kovacic due to having other immediate things to solve, such as defense and attack. And then after this transition phase, we can think about the midfield more, or even late in August, if we have solved other immediate issues. Regarding Raphinha now, because the whole situation has been too awkward. Now we had Arsenal offering Leeds, I think, £35 million, if I'm not wrong with the figures. It was immediately dismissed, and understandably so. And then when Arsenal was anticipated to make a second improved bid, we came a little bit out of the blue and reached an agreement with Leeds for more than £60 million. And where in a moment when personal terms weren't thought to be an issue, he seems to be eager to join Barcelona. Now, the problem is this, because I have seen discussions that people justify his stance of being, let's say, undecided or taking his time to evaluate his options. I totally agree that I won't become idealistic and think in a BS manner that the player has to come here despite the other options that he can have. But it's not really the case in my eyes. Why? Raphinha's decision-making process would be excused if both us and Barcelona would agree the fee with Leeds, and then both teams would put the respective proposals on the table to him, and then he would say, wait some days or another week for me to make up my mind, to consult my agent, my lawyer, to take my decision, because it's not an easy one. It's a delicate and bold career choice for somebody who will consider everything, such as wage, first team regularity, ambition for trophies, and everything. So I totally get that, but that's not really the case, because he is trying to give the impression that, hey guys, I don't want to come to go at Chelsea. So he wants to see Barcelona as sort of escape route, and rather than transpiring the sense of being privileged to be sort of approached by us, he's giving the impression of feeling alarmed and seeming that listen guys, he's trying to give the impression that these guys at Barcelona have to act fast and find the money in order to agree with Leeds, and then make sure that he goes there. So it's not the case that he has two equal proposals on the table and both us and Barcelona have the same financial stance of competing with him. So he's taking his time and making up his mind. The problem is that he's trying to get to attract Barcelona's interest and bid from the scratch. And for me, we are at the point that it's a lose-lose situation in principle in terms of his arrival at us. I don't blame our board because they showed the statement of intent. I see people trying to find negatives everywhere, but this time last year, the only name that we could talk about was Marcus Bettinelli, while now we have a very dynamic approach to the transfer targets we have, so we have to be thankful for that. And I hope and think realistically that signings will come as soon as possible. But we have to be cautious in the sense that the player has created a negative background regarding the possible transfer, and I don't really get how he could now come logically wise, because what would he possibly say at his interview for Chelsea TV now? So what reception would he get from the fans after everyone knows that we were far from his preferred choice, in a sense, even when we were the only club capable of signing him and agreeing with Leeds. So for me, it's the most reasonable thing is to give him a deadline, I think, till Monday at latest, and move on if he really wants to go there and focus on other targets. And footballing wise, I have my own doubts as well, because he has recorded 11 goals in 35 games. You may argue that it's Leeds, and I totally get that, but the problem is that the figure is quite heavy for a player that can go either way. He's an intriguing prospect, but not the profile that could guarantee, I think, the lowest possible level of risk in terms of signing him in principle. So for me, it's time to move on him. He hasn't made due diligence well enough. He wants to go there. We have to respect his decisions and focus on other targets. So I wanted to know your take on the matter, but I think that's not the moment to dwell on him anymore and try to lament the possible departure of him at Barcelona and his unwillingness to come here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I kind of don't want to just restate everything you just said, because I do agree in large part. I think that Raphinha is an interesting signing. It's somebody that I would actually welcome to the club. I mean, having played in Marcelo Bielsa's system, it's going to be well versed in how to press. And you look at Raphinha's pressing stats, and I mean, they are very, very good. So not only does he press often, he presses very well, and that's just like one thing, like a tactical piece that I get a little annoyed at when you hear people that act like pressing is not that important. Anybody can do it. Well, yeah, everybody can press, but not everybody can press well. Raphinha does both, and he does them at a very high level. So knowing how Thomas Tuchel has so far drilled his front three to basically be press and counter press whenever the ball is lost, I think Raphinha could be an incredible buy there. However, are we going to buy forwards just for the pressing ability? I'm not sure. I don't think so. That's not what I would be identifying as my key trait in a 60 million pound player. But I'm not the one making the decisions. I do think that Raphinha, aside from the pressing, he offers a pretty solid dribbling ability. I think as far as chance creation and shots, not sure if that's going to be the guy to solve the issues. But I think as far as just the pressing alone could result in a lot of, winning the ball high up the pitch, which could create chances more indirectly through those means. As far as the actual signing and all of that's surrounding it, not just what he is as a player and what he would potentially represent for our system and how that potentially upgrades us or downgrades us, I think that the entire saga is starting to be a little bit too much. And it is something that's getting to the point where something has to give, right? We've agreed this fee days ago. Personal terms have still not been agreed. And the last I saw is that the personal terms that he's being offered by Barca are the same as that, they're being offered by us, but Barca don't have the ability to stump up this much cash. And if they do, it's going to be in many installments because that club is essentially, staring down bankruptcy, but just keeps pulling these levers to, have more economic injection into their club. I don't really understand the legalities of all of that, and that's probably a little beyond the scope of this. But my thing is, if the last I saw just this morning was that Raphinha is willing to wait 6 to 12 months to get his move to Barcelona, as opposed to move to Chelsea right now. And I think that alone, if that is true, granted, there's a lot of things that are published during this time of year that have no basis in reality and are just being done to generate internet traffic. Assuming that it is true, Raphinha would rather wait for Barca than take the move now to, quite frankly, a much better club. Chelsea are a much better club than Barcelona in 2022. Financially, we have nothing that is making us have an inferior offer. This might just be what this guy wants to do and what his agent, Deco, former Barcelona and Chelsea player, are wanting to do. So I just have to say at the end of the day with Raphinha, I'm with you. I think we give it till the weekend, maybe until Tuesday morning. And if he is not accepted by then, look, that's when we say, well, look, we've had an agreement pretty much on the table for a week. You're not signing personalist terms. You're still waiting and just clearly delaying to try to see if Barcelona can go ahead and get this done. I think that's what's going on. And I'm with you. I wouldn't drag this out too much longer because it just that I don't want to be too sentimental as a fan. But if his intent truly is to play for Barcelona, then that's his career. And let's let this guy make his own career decisions, because this is the only career he's ever going to have. And these careers that they do have are much, much more short-lived than, the careers that me or everybody else in the fan is, as far as fans go, that we're working in our day-to-day jobs. So, you got to let the player do what they want. And if this is what he wants, then we need to accept that and move on and find another target. So I think with all the off-field things that are going on, there are reasons to think that Raphinha may not be the best player in terms of the options that we have now because of what's going on. But I think that we need as fans to be respectful that this isn't anything, this isn't a Raphinha against Chelsea. This is just that he prefers to make a move to Barcelona for his own career. And I don't think that we should take that personally, because at the end of the day, as fans, we have no right or anything along those lines to demand where a player, makes their career. That's entirely up to the player. So that's kind of where I'm at with Raphinha. If we get him, great. I'm not sure how much that in alone he helps. Now, I think with Sterling and Raphinha, he does provide a lot there. That starts to get me pretty intrigued with we have Raphinha and Sterling in that front three. But as it stands, not terribly. I don't think Raphinha is a game-changing player for us on his own right. And given all of the saga that's going on with this transfer, it may be best to look elsewhere.
Yeah, but here's the thing with him. The fact that he is trying to express, even so now it's totally clear that his first preference is Barcelona. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that let's say Barcelona doesn't find the right financial capability to,
which is a very likely scenario that they don't find the finances.
They are dodgy, but it can happen that they don't agree with Leeds, and especially considering that Leeds seem to respect the agreement that we have with them. Now, the issue is this. He's forced by the circumstances to come here. My problem is that we could have... So what does give us a guarantee that he won't show signs of unsettlement in the near or long future? So let's say Barcelona somehow improve their finances this time next year. How, with Lukaku's situation on the back of our mind, how can we pretend now that we signed Raphinha and everything is over? He can easily do what Lukaku did, or in another way, but still create that kind of a settlement which could easily disrupt team's harmony. And that's the issue that I have with him, because I'm trying to detach the discussion from the footballing side. I totally agree with you that he has potential, but he is not a game changer alone. No. But in terms of the circumstances and the dynamics of the deal and how we have seen everything in the recent days, I think he is totally started on the back foot, so that even if he signs, we won't have absolutely no guarantee. We will have absolutely no guarantee that he will be settled here and say, "Listen, these guys didn't get me, so I'm still privileged to be with Chelsea, and I will try so hard to convince people that I have made the right decision, and I will do everything I can to win trophies for this club." That's the issue. That's the big issue. I don't really feel for a player that doesn't want to come here, I don't feel that he will respect his contract and say, "I'm a professional. This wasn't my first choice, but my first choice didn't get me, so I will go to the second choice and do everything I can to convince them." It's not a kind of profile that amazes everyone, but this is another thing. I want to focus on the dynamics of the deal, and the dynamics are that we should move on. It's not about being sentimental. It's about being down to earth and thinking about a possible negative scenario that could happen regarding the reaction that he has shown to the fact that we agreed with Leeds. So we have absolutely no guarantee that he shows signs of bemusement and goes, let's say, tries to force a move elsewhere in January or at some point in his career. So the last thing we need at the moment, especially after getting rid of Lukaku, is players that don't really want to be here. One thing is trying to evaluate the options that you have, and one thing is trying to force interest out of elsewhere, and this is the matter. This is the difference. So I don't really find myself 100% at peace, even if he comes. At this point, I don't want it to drag him out for much longer, and hopefully he goes there now. Some of the comments in the chat, I think this view, do what they want is false. Kane, Mbappe, Kounde don't want to play for their club, but still get the job done. The thing is that Mbappe, I don't think he doesn't want to play for his club, because he had the option to leave and didn't. The dynamics were so strange because the money they paid for him was unprecedented in the sense that they were willing to make him not only financially privileged, but also in the sense of making him a sort of image of the club, which is something I can't really understand and can't accept in any means, whoever the player may be. Kane, yes, he wanted to leave, but with Conte's arrival, he has shown signs of adaptation, and Kane was somebody that had grown at Tottenham, was in their academy, got many loans, didn't give up, and finally got his chance even after unsuccessful loan spells in the Championship with Leicester, with Norwich, if I'm not wrong. So this is a different scenario. It's a player that had been raised there, where Raphinha is somebody that we want to get from elsewhere. So it's absolutely not the right comparison, in my opinion.
The other thing, I was going to say, kind of the other thing too with Harry Kane there is that he backed himself into a corner when he signed a 7-year contract. He has no negotiating power whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if he puts a formal transfer request in, he has very little negotiating power. Just because he signed such a large contract, and Tottenham know that, hey, we can just hold on to this asset, and he can kick and moan all he wants, but at the end of the day, if you've got 4 or 5 years left on your deal, basically the club has no pressure to sell that asset, because they know that they can wait 2 more years, given who he is, given his nationality, and given the league that he plays for. They can in 2 years sell him for almost the same fee they could sell him for right now, or could have last summer. So there's no reason, and but maybe in the Raphinha situation, I don't know what his contract is necessarily, but generally speaking, anybody who's 2 or less years on their contract has a lot more negotiating power than somebody with 5.
Yeah, of course, and he practically had his hand tied last summer, and Daniel Levy had all the power at his disposal to keep him and not allow him to leave. And traditionally speaking, Tottenham's board doesn't easily get finances. We know the situation that we had with Luka Modric in 2011. We came to their terms, and they still refused to sell a sort of asset at the time to a domestic rival. So they rather sent him elsewhere, and I think it was more or less the same logic behind Kane's. So their reluctance to send Kane to Man City. But regardless of that, now that coming to the defensive names, because there have been a lot even in this regard. Of course, Rudiger's departure has left a bitter taste for many people, and the fact that he amazed everyone after Thomas Tuchel's arrival is also another intriguing aspect of how he practically went from zero to hero uh, in his status in our team. So he was practically somebody that was considered violent from the fans, somebody that me included had on top of the list of the possible outgoings, and he ended up being a fan favorite and contributed massively as a left center back in our Champions League winning run. And also last season he was more or less undroppable in Thomas Tuchel's eyes. And the process, of course, is very delicate. And one of the names mentioned is another Man City player, which is a former Chelsea man, Atanake, who uh, is another example of making the fans divided regarding the opinions of him. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the potential. He is a versatile player, has played in different positions. He has played in a forward Bournemouth. He has managed to compensate his lack of height compared to other defensive players, because he jumps considerably high, and this is a good feature. He has shown signs of adaptation in a complicated system such as Pep, which needs defenders to be very sophisticated in the sense of playing very well with their feet, playing in different positions, being more or less the same level. So there is a team where the concept of a backup doesn't really exist. You have 3 or 4 players with similar characteristics for every position, and this helps them go through the hectic season from August to May and compete in every competition. And Ake is a player that has been behind Diaz, Laporte, and Stones in the pecking order, but still is somebody that, what intrigues me, unlike Sterling, is somebody that Man City fans seem worried about losing him, especially at us. So this is something that we have to consider, but at the same time, it's in principle far from the profile that I wanted us to replace Rudiger with. His lack of game time, it's an issue if you consider the fact that he usually plays there in FA Cup or League Cup games and even a Champions League game due to rotation. But he is far from being a preferred choice. And also the price that City want has been rumored to be more than £50 million. You may argue that this is modern football for you, and the dynamics of finances in modern market are dictated by the market itself rather than the clubs. So you can't really try to lower and get prices down and try to logically argue that this guy doesn't play too much for you, so you have to make a compromise. These are things that you can't really control, but I feel that it's not the most exciting profile that we would like to have for our defense. Unlike Sterling, who I see many negatives in principle, I'm more 50-50 stance for Ake. I see the issue that he doesn't play so often as a negative, as a problem. But the thing is that he is a player that when he plays, he has performed, that he has convinced that fan base, which is another admirable feature, which indicates that he has a sense of professionalism in himself. So he's not the kind of guy that will say, I'm rusty because of the lack of game time. I'm not feeling content. I want to play more. I came here to play, and things like that. He performs. So he has shown signs that he is a team player, and he's somebody that Thomas Tuchel has admired since his Borussia Dortmund days. So at the moment, I'm pretty undecided on him. Maybe I'll grow over time, but I can't give a pros or cons regarding the possible signing of a player that has another positive of knowing the environment, and this is crucial in modern football. So I'm really intrigued to know your thoughts on him, and where do you position himself in terms of our possibility of signing him back, and specifically him being a direct Rudiger replacement.
Yeah, so I think Nathan Ake is an interesting player to talk about here. He's not going to be the most popular signing at all. And just for everybody still watching, thanks a lot. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the support. I think with Ake, look, so he's been at the club before. He knows the club, right? He's come through since a young age. He spent time with Kounde. He played in the back three already for us. He played with Bournemouth, and had some success there, enough to get Pep Guardiola to be interested to purchase him. Now, I don't think that, Ake has been relegated to not playing much at City because he's this terrible player. It's just about who's in front of him, right? He's got, Diaz and Laporte have kind of taken over that role, in their center back room. You have John Stones. You kind of have the Pep shuffle where he can shuffle players around a lot. So I just don't really see Ake having, I don't think they spent the amount that they spent. I think it was a little over 40 million pounds is what they spent for Ake. They didn't spend that money because he's just somebody that got to the club and wasn't good enough. They spent that money because they wanted a left-footed center back. And the reason why I think that, and that alone, just the fact that he's a left-footed center back, is going to be more important than people realize. Okay, and the reason why is we had Rudiger, a right-footed player, playing left center back, which is not you don't have to be left-footed to play on the left side, right? I mean, there's plenty of left wingers out there that are right-footed, and vice versa. But what I would say is that when you look at how this works from a functional standpoint and a tactical perspective, when you're building out from the back, having that left-footed center back is a crucial aspect of what's needed to quickly and efficiently play out from the back. And you might say, well, is there really much of a difference between a left-footed center back at left center back and a back three, between a right-footed center back at left center back and a back three? What's really the difference? Does it really make much of a difference? Well, it does. When you start actually looking at the way in which the passing angles that they have available to them when they receive the ball with their back at goal, and then you need to quickly shuffle it over to the fullback, or even in the context of, okay, if I'm the left-footed center back, I need to hit this with my left side to get it over to the right side to switch the field to play quickly to break that press and keep the possession, which we're trying to do from a systematic standpoint. That is why I think that we need to be a little bit more open to the idea of Ake, right? He provides simply a piece that it provides literally marginal upgrades from what a right-footed center back will do in that same position, but that is provided by the fact that they are able to, with having a left foot on the left side, more quickly and more efficiently get that ball swinging through possession and moving it to better beat the press. And this is something that, if you're really interested in it, you can look more into this from a tactical perspective on what this actually means. I don't want to go into all of the detail on basically the marginal differences in possession-based teams with using a left-footed or a right-footed center back at that left center back position. But there are marginal differences, and those marginal differences can influence reaction times that can maybe be a half second, and that half second can have a big difference in terms of what actually happens in retaining possession. So I think it is a very underrated aspect that most fans are not thinking of from a tactical perspective on what he's going to offer. And then let's think about it from a greater stance. He's coming from a system that is hyper dependent upon building from the back, keeping possession, and quickly moving the ball to beat the press, just like what we want to see with Thomas Tuchel. So he's checking the box of having a left foot for a left center back position in a back three, and then he's going to absolutely have the right systematic or tactical instructions given from where he's coming from to where he will be coming back into. Although City don't play a back three, or they mostly play four at the back, the thing is that Ake has the experience playing in a back three, okay, in a system very, well, kind of similar to what we're playing now when he was under Conte. So there are a lot of similarities that check the right boxes to get him going as a good signing. I think the money that we're talking about for Ake, the market, is a little bit too much. I think 50 million pounds is quite a lot for a player who really has not done a whole lot at Manchester City during his time there. Again, I know that's a function of who he's up against, and he can't really control that. But at the same time, I just feel that I hope that we can get that fee down. And I think that we can get that fee down if we tell Man City, look, we'll give you 50 million for Raheem Sterling plus add-ons. And then within that, can we get Ake for 35 to 40? I think that might be something, I'm not in these negotiations, but that's what I would pose as kind of a 2-for-1 kind of deal as the Chelsea hierarchy. And yeah, I think that absolutely that if he comes in, I think the reason why he's going to be a good player, no matter what the finances might be, and granted, I understand that there is a value-based aspect to any transfer negotiation that's going to be dictated by the market. If he does come in, I don't think he's going to be demanding, week in, week out to be that starting left center back. I think he will shuffle around. But the thing is he's going to offer a little bit more flexibility. He's going to offer more depth, and we need all of those things. And more than anything, we need a Rudiger replacement. And I think that if we're going to look for players to be a Rudiger replacement, we're looking in the right direction with Ake. And that's where I would kind of end on him. I think that tactically, it's going to offer something that we currently don't have. It might be a marginal gain, but that marginal gain can have big influences for how we actually play our own system. And that's why I think I'm actually on board with the Nathan Ake signing much more than some of the fanfare we see on Twitter. I think it's smarter business, but I really don't think that we should be approaching a whole lot over 40 million pounds for this player. That's what they paid for him. They haven't used him enough to make that, asset appreciate in value. If anything, it's probably stayed the same or depreciated. So I don't think that we should be targeting much more than that. To answer your question, Steve, I think 40 million is about the maximum, in my opinion, that we go for Ake. And I think that we can easily get that fee down if we go ahead and agree the Sterling deal and maybe put a little bit more money up front on that deal to lower the fee for Ake.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I think even personally, my decision making regarding whether I want him or not will fall down to the price itself, because he has his positive. He isn't the most intriguing name possible, but you said that the marginal edge that he may bring here, and the fact that he can, as a Dutch defender first and foremost, who has developed in that environment, he can be let's say very reliable on the ball, which is another must, another necessity in the high intense nature of English football. Can play different positions, and unlike Rudiger, can be also relied in different systems. So Rudiger was particularly good for us in a back three as a left center back, but he had these issues in a back four under previous managers. So Ake does both. He can play in a two at the four at the back, and also he can play as a left center back very reliably at his best. My only issue is, as you said, if the price goes over 40 million, first and foremost, and I genuinely think that the ultimate opinion of mine will fall down to the price, and also to the fact that he doesn't have regular game time. So I don't know whether we can rely on him for the long run in terms of making him a first team regular in every competition, because that's the profiles that we have to seek due to losing two center backs in Rudiger and Christensen. And while we are the center, we had a buyback clause, says Steve, from Bournemouth last year, 40 million. Yeah, we did, and we opted not to match City's offer when they signed him from Bournemouth. At the time, it was another kind of logic behind it, because we had our center backs and we didn't play in a three.
Yeah.
So he is very reliable in that. In now he's specifically being chased to play as a left center back and possibly as a left wing back if Thomas Tuchel judges it reasonable. Um, Clive Manuta says we need Koulibaly. He's strong and better than Rudiger. He could be another silver case, old and defective. We'll come to that, but principally, I'm saying that he's the only name that really convinces me out of every name that has been mentioned, despite many people being a bit worried about his age and trying to think that he's so we are 5 or 6 years later. We aren't later. He is a player that can provide consistency, can be easily adapted here due to his links with Edouard Mendy in the national team, but it's very important in modern football to have that relocation process running smoothly, and he can do that. He's a leader, has the characteristics of somebody that um, can provide solidity at the back and experience, and also be an intimidating presence for the opposition attackers through his physicality, and also his work on the ball is quite good in my opinion. He has been used under Maurizio Sarri for 3 years at Napoli to be a focal point at defense in terms of starting the attacks, in terms of being a set piece threat more often than not. I remember the game against Juve that Napoli played, and he scored a header, and he has been very good at that. So he's all in all, I think he is the right profile that we have to seek for the defense, because he has 3 or 4 good years in him still. And the only issue is that he hasn't been mentioned as much as the others, and I don't really know if he would be open to come here, and how. And always at the back of the mind, I have the past tricky relationships that we have had with Aurelio De Laurentiis, Napoli's owner, president. So we is extremely stubborn when it comes to letting his main players go, even at the point of you think that the guy has 1 year left at the contract, so he will sign him easily. He's not the guy that you could easily make compromises, as you common sense may indicate you. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that. Arsenal fan, you do think Chelsea and Arsenal are battling for the fourth spot? I think Spurs have a stronger squad than both of us. I would hold my horses here, because Spurs have signed quantity. I really doubt if the quality of the players they have signed are good enough to fight for a title challenge as yet. They have a backup keeper. They have Richarlison. That price for me is excessive. They have Perisic, who is a player I admire, but I don't know whether he is a profile that they need, sustainably speaking, to manage the long run. So it's still early to make predictions regarding the positions that the teams will have, because we are in the 2nd of July, and we need more weeks to make a more concrete evaluation of the situation of every team, and make predictions based on their personnel, their refreshed personnel that they will have, basing on the incomings and outgoings. Another name that we have had in terms of the center back is Matthijs de Ligt. So is another name that has brought division regarding the opinions of the fan base. Now the problem with him is this: he has been playing in a team that has been underwhelming as a whole at Juventus. So this may mislead people into thinking that he's a bad defender. And also, even when he went from Ajax to Juve, it was, culturally speaking, a move that didn't really make sense at the time. Although Maurizio Sarri was somebody that endorsed the possession-based football, so he wouldn't have the extreme, so knife sharp change from going from an attacking system to a system that is classically Italian. He still had struggles to adapt there, and these struggles have deepened with Allegri's return and also at his year with Pirlo, that their styles don't really have to do much with the system that he had been nurtured with at Ajax, with the leadership skills, with the set piece threat he brought, with the work on the ball that was very mature from him at the time. And now, strangely enough, he doesn't seem as convincing anymore. And out of all Dutch defenders who are traditionally very well prepared on the ball, they are very composed, can absorb pressure, can play zonally, so they don't have the problem of being individually distinguished. They play in the zone. He has been often criticized for his lack of positional awareness at Juve. So that's the issue I have. So are we signing him at the right time, or is he the profile that has the potential, but the potential is hidden due to the fact that Juve has been underwhelming as a whole, and he's just a victim of the circumstances there in a team that now has had many problems, both tactically and organizatively wise. So I think he would be a good addition, and I think that he would even for the price. It's not bad if we manage to lower it, and his determination to come, it has been reported, is a good factor, especially considering that he's a player that has a leadership skill. So eventually he may influence a positive impact in the dressing room as well if he really wants to come here. And we managed to lower the initial price that Juve had put for him, £102 million, which is excessive, exaggerated. But now Alfredo Pedula reported yesterday that we have sent an offer of £60 million and 70 million euros for him, which is a reasonable offer for a quality of the player that hasn't managed to express it, but he still has there. And the fact that he hasn't been very very convincing at Juve doesn't mean that he doesn't have the potential. And even if we personally and ideally speaking, I think that if we manage to include Timo Werner in the deal, it could have been even better, because I don't think that he has much to offer at us. Last season, he was totally underwhelming, performed only against Southampton, both games, and Real Madrid away. So his time at us for him is up, in my opinion. But even cash alone, and if they accept our offer of £60 million or even 10 million more, it would be maybe not the most convincing in principle as a signing, but it would be worth a gamble, in my opinion, especially knowing that Thomas Tuchel was the one that transformed our defense and made names that were initially unconvincing. He made them fan favorites in Rudiger and Christensen. So I think that the league has the potential to work with and make him somebody that we could rely on in the long term, and why not become a Thiago Silva replacement in the future. I have my doubts, because he's a bit clumsy on the ball, and he has shown that at Juve, and his disciplinary record is a bit of a problem. But I think that he can build on that, and he can improve this aspect under meticulous coaching. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, man, De Ligt is a strange signing. So the reason I say he's strange signing is because when you look at his underlying numbers, there's nothing that really stands out, to me at least. When I look at his percentile stats, quick scouting report here on FBref, there is really nothing that stands out. His best percentile stat is the 83rd percentile for aerial duels won. That's his best overall, quick scouting report statistic. Granted, this isn't a complete report. It's a very quick glance. There's not a whole lot that jumps off the page with De Ligt. But the thing about De Ligt is that, look at his age. He's still a very, very young defender. He's only 22 years old at this point. So he'll be turning 23 to lead into the new season, the 2022-2023 season. So he's only going to be 23. Defenders maybe take a little bit longer to hit, their full ability. Look at Antonio Rudiger. He kind of hit that peak of his career just as he's leaving Chelsea. So I think that Man, as of right now, De Ligt is not somebody that I think is going to come in and just offer this Van Dijk like transformation for our defense. I don't think that's going to happen immediately. What I do think with De Ligt is that he offers a potential 5 to 6 year plan, if not more, if it works out really well. And if you're going to be able to do that deal for around 60 million to, let's say, 60 million plus a player or something like that, I mean, that's where you have to really start to look at this and think about it in the sense of the long term effect. We're not just going to bring in, I think we're going to bring in at least one, maybe two center backs from the market. We have Colwell returning. We still have, although he's not the greatest option, Malang Sarr. I don't think the De Ligt would come in and be pressured to play 95% of matches to where we know he has to be week in, week out in that middle center back position. I think that more than likely he's going to have Thiago Silva and himself splitting the minutes there, with De Ligt having the majority of that split. Because let's not forget, Thiago Silva is 38 years old. It's going to be pretty foolish to rely on him to play 75% plus in the matches this upcoming season. And it's just kind of negligent to rely on Silva at this age to play week in, week out, match in, match out, as well as still maybe doing some international duty here and there. So that's kind of where I would rely here on De Ligt. I think that it's a signing that it may not be the greatest thing in the immediate future, but let's say after 2 years here on a 5 year deal, that's when we really might start to see the value this player is worth. And let's not forget that there are some intangibles here that we can't really quantify with a statistical approach, which is the fact that Matthijs de Ligt was captaining Ajax at 19 years old in the Champions League semifinal and almost advanced past Spurs to go to the final as a captain at 19 years old. And just the overall structure at that Ajax system fit him very well. And I think it's arguable that our system, Chelsea's system, is closer to Ajax's than the system that Allegri is playing in Juventus, because the system that Allegri is playing in Juventus, I mean, from the little amount that I watched Juventus last season, it was dire. I mean, it was seriously football from 10 to 15 years ago. It's just not what we're playing at all. And I think that that's, in my reasoning, a big part in why that De Ligt has become much less overwhelming than he used to be when he was at Ajax as the prospect that he was. I think there's been a little bit of a mismatch in recent times with Juventus and the style that they want to play, just kind of where the club is at, where that squad is at. It's a very old squad. It's led by a very old, sort of traditional manager with Allegri in charge. So I just think there's a lot of factors that don't add up for De Ligt at Juventus. But I do think there is so much talent, so much promise, and we've seen it already at a Champions League level, so no higher level than that, when he was considerably younger. So I think that this would be, if we're being honest, if Tuchel wants this deal, he has a plan. We've seen how a similar system worked for De Ligt already, and if we can get this price to where we think we can get it, and I've seen around 60, might go up a little more. But yeah, I think that overall De Ligt could be a good player for us, and it could be much worse than De Ligt. I mean, let's be realistic here. There are much worse targets we could go after, all things considered. But the profile of De Ligt is going to be great. I think it could be great from not only a footballing standpoint, but a financial one for the club as well.
Yeah, so more or less it's a case of being worth a gamble. That's rather than us making in unison the mind up regarding him. He has the potential, and that's what keeps me hopeful. Yeah. I wouldn't be particularly excited, as I said, if we sign Koulibaly, because that's the kind of statement profile for the defense that I would really want us to sign.
Yeah, I would be fine with Koulibaly. I think he's so much experience and adds so much quality, and it could be, he's only like 30 years old. I mean, it's not like he's hit 30 years old and forgot how to play the game.
He's Thiago at 35. So somebody who can really take care of his career can play until the late 30s, and Koulibaly has the potential to do that. And also his composure, as I said, is too underrated. I mean, a player that can play very well in many systems. He has played under Rafa Benitez at Napoli, has played under Maurizio Sarri, has played under Carlo Ancelotti, Gennaro Gattuso. For the Senegal national team, he's a leader. So he adapts to different environments and keeps his consistency. So coming back to the league, the issue is that he has disappointed me in the sense of playing underwhelmingly, especially on the ball, and that's very strange to see and awkward to see from Dutch defenders in general, because one of the basics that they learn since their academy days is being comfortable with the ball at their feet, and that's why I'm hoping that if we sign him, that it turns out to be a case of him being at the wrong place in the wrong place at the wrong time in that system at Juve, rather than him being underwhelming himself, because it's a sharp cultural difference, as I said, from from Ajax, where zonal marking is key to developing players, and switching to a man-to-man approach that Catenaccio has it as a basic principle since its origin in the 60s. So, and Allegri uses more or less this kind of rigid style, and De Ligt has been more individually responsible rather than being part of a line at Juve. So that's why I'm being hopeful that he has just been in the wrong habitat at Juve, rather than him being underwhelming himself and not the guy that we used to watch in Ajax Champions League run till the semi-final 18-19.
And you make a good point there with like the habitat that he's in. I mean, because you have to look, he had a very good season, his first season at Juve, and that was under a system that he was more familiar with Sarri's system, more in line with what he was coming from with Ajax. But then you look at who he played for in the following season after Sarri. It was Andrea Pirlo. And the Andrea Pirlo experiment did not work at Juventus. And then, additionally, he not only plays for Pirlo, then the next season they bring back Allegri. And Allegri, like I said, I mean, if you watch any of that Juventus team this year, it was not an enjoyable watch as a neutral fan. It was hard to watch. It was hard to get through. And quite frankly, I mean, it was just reductive football at this point. You'll see some of the people say that it was, kind of like a dinosaur-like looking team, and I'm not going to lie, yeah, it kind of was. And that's why Juventus, despite all that money in their squad, were not able to really challenge Milan or Inter this season. So I think that with De Ligt, I kind of agree with you. The habitat is important here, particularly who he's had to be surrounded by, manager and players, the last two seasons specifically, which unsurprisingly are the years they haven't won Serie A, and they did win Serie A when Sarri was there.
Yeah, and they still moaned at the time because of the fact that they didn't really watch what they have been used to, and called Sarri somebody that doesn't bring success, and Allegri somebody that is against the beautiful game but can bring sustainability. And now Allegri's return has convinced them that it's completely it's completely totally the opposite of that, because as you said, they have played a pretty dire and flat football without any kind of energy, and haven't been productive so results wise as well, besides the performances. Having a quick look to the chat before moving on to Ousmane Dembele, Chiellini and Bonucci, it says, a beautiful game, we're still in the squad. Well, De Ligt was captain. That's another interesting point, but the leadership skills aren't always decided by the captain armband. It's something that the player has been within himself first and foremost. So whether he's a captain or not, that's another discussion. Let's go through if there is another comment to make before we move on. This is a discussion from. Okay. So I was seeing back then a debate regarding Conte's Tuchel comparison. I don't think it's the right time to make comparisons about them, because technically wise, they are two very good managers at the elite, but Tuchel ticks a lot of boxes, because for me Conte is not a project manager, and he has proved not to be. He's that kind of guy that is in an environment currently that can put pressure on the owners to say that, hey, I'm leaving if you don't fulfill my conditions. And he couldn't do that at us. He couldn't do that at Inter, at Juve, because he is, for Tottenham, is a luxury of having a manager with his accomplishments at the past. But the generally speaking, he has many issues as well in terms of man management, and also with the fact that his system doesn't bring versatility when the number of games increases. And if you go through his accomplishments in the past, without trying to discredit him by any means, but trying to state the facts, is that Inter won the league when they were eliminated by Champions League in group stages, so they had half a season only by using it to only compete domestically. And it was the same with us, that we played only in the league and in the FA Cup when we reached the final in 2017, and a season later when we had to compete in different fronts, we had a pretty underwhelming season until Conte started playing negative football. So there are the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and there are two sides of the medal. While Tuchel has shown in different clubs an ability to improve and stick to a project, I don't think PSG spirit was the best for him. But PSG is a difficult environment for every manager. I have read Carlo Ancelotti's autobiography, and it says that it was pretty difficult to convince people, even when you were winning, due to the fact that they wanted immediate success and European in the Champions League, and they haven't really reached it. And Tuchel is the one that sent them further down the line in 2020. No one has, while traditionally they have struggled to pass the round of 16 stage. But that's another discussion. Moving on to Ousmane Dembele now, I'm equally with Raphinha. I'm losing hope on him as well, because of the fact that he seems also keen on staying at Barcelona. He's somebody that would be intriguing, but only nostalgic-wise, due to his past with Thomas Tuchel, the work they did at Dortmund. He came to prominence in a very proactive system there, with Pulisic playing on the wing, many exciting attacking players, Henrik Mkhitaryan being at his peak, Aubameyang scoring 40 goals in 46 games as well, Marco Reus being productive, and also he was another player that provided excitement in this kind of environment. But his move at Barcelona has been far from what was expected from him initially, and the price they paid for him, over 100 million, has never been justified. He has lacked game time, has lacked availability in terms of fitness, and the issue with him is that, equally with Sterling, Barcelona fans seem happy to let him go and to get rid of him for different reasons. I don't know why. And also, from a neutral perspective, I don't really get why he and his agent has come to this situation, because I think they have scored an own goal from themselves, because he is far from the situation where he can put conditions. As we speak, he's a free agent, and he still kept persisting of having a lucrative wage. I read it somewhere, it was 18 million, which is a crazy demand for somebody who has barely played. Yeah. His potential is there, and we aren't denying that, but there are many misgivings. And if he wasn't a free signing, which also has to be debated due to his wages, which compensate a lot, for 80 million euros or pounds, you sign a player himself, let alone having the wages for him. Still, I don't really get a clear reason why to get excited of somebody that the fans want him out of from his current club, or let's say his ex-club momentarily, because he's out of contract. And the thing is that he can provide a lot of positives in terms of accelerations and the dynamism he provides out wide. And also, he had very good contribution stats through a blossoming period at Barcelona in the last 3 months of this year, which was unexpected from themselves, who were prepared to let him go in January if a reasonable offer came. So it's another case of what weighs which. So are the positives to be taken more in consideration or the negatives? I would have taken him on a free, but it ultimately falls down to a similar sense to Raphinha's one, and I really get the impression that he really wants to stay at Barcelona there despite his own conditions, and it's very intriguing to see how will he react after now he is not in the situation of deciding things himself. So for me, it's a yes if Tuchel is really convinced of getting him back to his Dortmund shape and evolving on top of that. But realistically speaking, I don't really get the impression of him because his numbers are good when he plays, but he barely plays. And his wage demand should be much lower for me to say this is a profile we should go for despite his deficiencies that we can work on. So what's your stance on him? And do you really feel that he can realistically come here in these days, despite and whether you see Raphinha's possible arrival at Barcelona as a catalyst of a domino effect that we see Dembele here, or do you see them as two independent deals and Barcelona could easily find somehow a way to have both of them for this season?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second half of that. I don't understand Barcelona's finances at all. They're basically, maybe this is a very limited understanding that I have, but basically they're facing bankruptcy every week. They keep on pulling these economic levers that give them more money. They're basically selling off the rights to all their TV networks. They're doing whatever they can to basically shake, change out of the couch, metaphorically speaking. So I don't really understand what's going on or how it's going on and how they have all of a sudden 200 million euros to spend when they were last week talking about having to restructure, potentially not even sign Franck Kessie and Andreas Christensen on freeze, let alone involving transfer fees and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really understand their finances. I'm going to say, given that it's Barcelona, the rules are very strange for Barcelona. That's all I'm going to say. And who knows? I wouldn't be putting it past them to be able to sign Raphinha, the deal that they've, reportedly been working on, and then eventually bring Ousmane Dembele back as well. However, I don't know. I'm just not in the know of football finances well enough to answer that with any, level of informative intelligence. But either way, I would say that, looking at how Dembele fits potentially, let's say that they do get Raphinha, and that is the catalyst for Barcelona to move on from Dembele and not re-sign him and register him in their squad for next season. I think that's basically gives us a free run. Well, you hope at getting Dembele. And I think the reason why we should go after Dembele if we lose out on Raphinha is simply because look at what our biggest lacking characteristic or attribute, in my opinion, is in the attack. We have this lack of chance creation, and we have this weird mix of wingers who are being asked to play inside forward positions more often that don't suit their skill sets enough. Like, look at Hakim Ziyech. He was best as that free role on the right, and if you're not going to play him there, you need to play him centrally and have him basically opening up the attack with his pass playing ability. We didn't give him that role under Thomas Tuchel, and he has struggled specifically. Look at Timo Werner. He is not good in the role that he's been asked to play for quite some time now. Kai Havertz is very enigmatic. He can be good. He can be completely lost. It's just a matter of which Kai Havertz you're going to get for which day. I just don't think we have enough players that offer this chance creation ability. And I think that Ousmane Dembele, relative to other wingers, is an incredible chance creator. I mean, he's in the 94th percentile for shot creating actions, 91st for passes attempted. progressive carries and dribbles completed, he's in the 99th percentile. So, I mean, we talked about Raheem Sterling having this dribbling and pace ability to win on the wings to create these, one-on-one situations that then he wins and opens up spaces to create more attacking opportunities. Well, Dembele can do all of that as well. And he can also provide the shot creating actions and assists that Sterling doesn't quite provide. And he's also younger than Sterling. But the big question mark is the fact that Dembele is so injury prone. Right. And we have another player in our team that has good shot creating metrics, but is seemingly never healthy and doesn't really live up to the hype that we've seen build yet because he can't get over 1,000 minutes in any given season, which is Callum Hudson-Odoi. So there's a little bit of a duality here between Dembele and Hudson-Odoi being similar players. It's just that Dembele has proved it for a lot longer and has shown that I'm not just a talent in this setup. I have a lot more to offer than just a potential talent. And he has proven it now at Dortmund. He's proven it at Barcelona. But again, he's just an injury-prone player. And that's going to be the key. But I think if you can bring Dembele in with the potential free, no transfer fee and reinvest a lot of that fee into higher wages, you're going to have to accept that. But I don't think that it's crazy to put a player of his, prolific nature, right? He's been somebody that's been talked about as an incredible winger, one of the better up-and-coming talents since he was an 18, 19-year-older at Dortmund, unsurprisingly, with Thomas Tuchel. So I think that's a good reason to think about him as a player to bring in. He has that familiarity with Tuchel. He has so much promise. If his injuries can be managed and he can have the right fit within this squad, he definitely has the profile we're looking for. So I just think that all things considered, if we get Dembele on a free or Bosman transfer, there are considerably worse moves we can make, both in the short term and the long term. And I think Dembele checks a lot of the boxes that we currently don't have. But I caveat all this with saying we could easily sign Dembele on a 5-year deal and he only plays 100 matches in 5 years. That is within the range of outcomes given his injuries. But here's the thing I think about injuries. Every player has the probability to get injured. There's a non-zero chance every time that a player takes the field that they're going to get hurt. Trying to predict who and when is, a person is going to get hurt or which player is going to get hurt, how long it's going to be, when it happens. Those are impossible predictions to make with any level of utmost certainty. So I think that if we're going to say we don't want Dembele because of injuries, well, then you can make that argument for any player in the squad or any player that we would potentially go after. You can say, well, I don't want that person because we could pay a bunch of money and they get hurt. That is the reality for any player. Now, it just happens to be the reality with Dembele is that he has probably a more likely chance to get hurt given his previous history. But if managed correctly, if done what we need to do, if I think we can get 65 to 70% of matches played each season on a 4 to 5 year deal out of Dembele, that's going to be an incredible signing for us. And that's where I'll leave it. The injury history is there. It's a concern. But I think the upside of this signing is way too high of an upside to get worried about his potential injury history. You're basically getting a world-class level Cho who's proven it for, several years.
Yeah, that's exactly what excites me in the sense that Thomas Tuchel knows him and has shown his conviction of getting the best out of him. But in terms of the injuries, as you said, it's the issue is that he hasn't had unfortunate injuries. He has had repeated physical injuries. Yes. And that's something that really worries me because history indicates that these kind of players are accompanied by these injuries throughout a long period in their career. And that's equally, that's my fear when it comes to discussions with people regarding the decision of us selling Christian Pulisic or not, because he has the potential. I'm making a parallel between him and Dembele because they have played in the same team at Dortmund and they can provide the same amount of trickery and spontaneity, intuition when they are at their best. But the problem is that he has had many injuries that we at the time in 2007 thought that Arjen Robben wouldn't make it just because of these injuries, and we are proven wrong. So we pulled the plug earlier than needed, and that's what scares me when it comes to selling Pulisic, and equally what makes me optimistic when it comes to possibly signing Dembele. Yeah. So what I think is that he's a player worth taking a gamble on, as we said on the league, for other reasons. But he more than the injuries that can be recovered through an intense physical preparation process, that I think that for Premier League teams is a must due to the nature of the league and the hectic period. Now we have also the World Cup in front of us, and the players will be extra motivated to stay fit. But the problem is that he has the extra wage demands, which can made us hesitant and reluctant to give him a formal offer.
Yeah.
And also, I hope, but although I really doubt at the back of my head that he will have a similar stance to Raphinha's and will eventually give up to Barcelona's reduced wage offer that they have made to him, which would be a very bad image from him in front of the world, because for him and his agent, because they worked for so long to get their conditions fulfilled, and now seemingly he's without the club and without any kind of legit argument to pretend to stick to those demands, due to the facts that we mentioned. So injuries, frequent injuries, and the fact that he hasn't played too much, and also doesn't really have the fan base behind him to put pressure on the club to get hold of him. So it's a very intriguing situation. I like Raphinha, where I think that he could easily end up at Barcelona now, with the club. So with us not being willing to give him a lot of time. I don't think that's the same case with Dembele, because neither of the clubs is eager to really go after him. So ultimately he has to adapt, whether it's at Barcelona or whether it's at us. This has to be seen, but it's worth a gamble, but not on those wages. He has to decrease, and I don't really think that we would pay those wages to him, because 80 million euros is a total exaggeration. It's let's say, especially coming on the back of us possibly signing Sterling, who will have his wages, whether they are similar to those he has at City or not, but he still will have comprehensive wages. And also, we just got rid of Lukaku, so we saved 12 million euros a season, and it would be totally pointless, from my own perspective at least, to waste those money back, rather than rewarding players such as Reece James, who earns a very low sum of 70 million pounds a week, which doesn't, which isn't, let's say, adaptable, or which isn't rewarding enough for the quality of a player like him. So, of course, these things have to be taken in consideration. To Bruce says, as for the injuries and play to squad strength, not the system. I think these are two detached discussions. Tactical stuff and injury stuff are two different things. Injuries doesn't have, and the environment in which Dembele has played isn't an environment he can excuse himself, because football is too much softer in Spain and Italy rather than in England. And particularly him in Spain doesn't have the conditions to say that I'm injured because of this and that, and due to the intensity, due to getting kicks from everywhere. He has played, let's say, soft football compared to the English one. Dembele and Pulisic were together with Tuchel at Dortmund. Would you like to see them together again? Principally, yes, but as I said, not on those conditions that Dembele has put. I'm trying to go through other comments. Post Hazard, we didn't scout anyone who is direct threat. We tried to in the summer 2020. I think Werner was superficially direct due to his goals at Leipzig were coming from transitions, from moments of recovering possession, attacking empty spaces behind or between the lines of the opposition, but he didn't have the desired result at us. So that's the That's the issue. In the meantime, because we have went through, I think, all the names that have been mentioned. That what if I have forgotten somebody, please remind me. Do you have any particular say, Trev, to say yourself? So about the stream, about the show that we'll have, also about the transfer targets, about something about the club that we have forgotten and we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, I think. I mean, first off, I think it's been a great discussion overall. I think we've approached a lot of these targets in a very, informed, full analysis way, which has been good. I haven't really had this chance to do it, so thanks for having me on for that. I think it's been a good episode in that regards. I think that we've really kind of at the names that we've seen have given a really good rundown of the pros and cons of each potential player. As far as what we're seeing, we've seen the club linked with a lot of players. We've had this Jules Kounde link now for what feels like 3 transfer windows, but nothing is really happening there. And that's kind of like why I don't find him at this point to be that interesting of a conversation. If we've been pursuing a player for 3 years and can't get a deal done, or 3 transfer windows, can't get a deal done, I don't really have any faith that we're going to get it done. And I actually have a lot of doubts about Kounde. I don't think he's ever going to be a player that drastically lets us move to a back 4. And quite frankly, I find that the targets we're being linked with for center back with Koulibaly, De Ligt, and even Ake having his own Premier League experience are probably better signings in the short term for us than Kounde will be. But I think overall, yeah, I think that what I think is most likely to happen, and just my own opinion on this, is that we're going to get Raheem Sterling very soon. Depending upon Raphinha, what happens there, it looks like he's going to go to Barcelona, so maybe we get Dembele. I mean, those would be 2 huge things. And if we just get 2 center backs like Koulibaly and De Ligt, I mean, so you look at year 1 window for Boli would be De Ligt, statement signing. You're probably signing somebody you think can be your starting center back for 5 or more years with that move. You're getting Koulibaly. You're going to get several good years left. You're going to have him alongside Thiago Silva. You're going to have that veteran, leadership core. And then if you get Dembele and Raheem Sterling, I think the only glaring thing is in that regard, you only have 2 out-and-out strikers. Well, and actually one of them, Kai Havertz, is not an out-and-out striker. So you really only have one with Armando Broja. So I think that's going to leave us a little thin in the striker department. However, I'm glad that we didn't go ahead and drop £60 million on Richarlison, which I don't think that he's done anything to deserve that fee, other than he's a striker at a club in the Premier League. I think that's really all that he's done to deserve that fee. Overall, I think we have some very exciting, encouraging targets that we're after this summer, all of which are going to offer a lot of positives, all of which can offer some potential negatives. And I think that really what we need to do this season is just build a little bit of a scaffolding, a little bit of a foundation here for how we're going to operate in the future. Because I think that the truth of this is there is no way that we're going to be closing the gap between City and Liverpool in one season. And with that, kind of context in mind, then we don't need to be terribly concerned about making £100 million plus signings that are supposedly, closing the gap immediately. Because I don't think this gap is going to get closed. And we've heard this close the gap talk now since basically the end of Lampard's first season in charge. The gap hasn't been closed. Okay, so we need to probably go back to the drawing board a little bit. And I think being patient and just trying to get, in that top 3 this season is what we should be after. And I think that these signings will absolutely fulfill that if that's what we're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't really close the gap in one season, but what I like is that Thomas Tuchel hasn't excused himself with the concept of time, which is something very disgusting to see from modern managers. They are in the spotlights, and I get that. But when you say, for example, at Arsenal, you see Mikel Arteta excusing himself with the fact that this is a project, but being a project doesn't mean that you are entitled to lose games on the spin and to tell the fans, listen, I'm not winning these 3 or 4 years, but after 4 years we'll start winning silverware or things. Football doesn't work in this way. We did that mistake with Andre Villas-Boas in 2011. And what I like at Thomas Tuchel is that he has always said that the time is now for winning. He said that before the press conference against Porto last year in the Champions League quarterfinal, and he delivered. And this didn't mean that we aren't in a so in a course of a project, but equally didn't mean that we would lower our standards and become less ambitious. So what I really like is that we have a manager in place that we can really trust with in the short and long run, who doesn't try winning things and becoming a sustainable team, which needs time, as two mutually exclusive matters. He can do both simultaneously, and this is due to also his ability and experience as being one of the most astute managers in the world. And also we have to be fortunate for the fact that we have the hopefully will appoint an equally astute as we have the manager in terms of the director of football at the time, because I think one of the reasons that we have had these hit and miss signings has been the lack of a director of football in the recent years. So hopefully we get Michael Edwards specifically is my preferred choice.
Absolutely.
A name that has been the architect of this Liverpool side. He has not only helped them transform their ideology of signing players that have been underwhelming, like Balotelli or Lallana or Lambert before, to names that have been consistently good for the team and in a reduced, or let's say more or less a normal, not extraordinary budget at his disposal, and also has prevented them from making wrong signings, such as Marcel Brands or Mario Götze, Julian Brands or Mario Götze, and then signed Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah. So this cohesion is what we want to see, and of course we want to keep the same ambition levels throughout the process before we get to the hopefully get to a final product and become a sustainable football club that can compete for all fronts in the long run, so from August to May, and in as many seasons as possible. So that's from me. It was a massive pleasure to have this return of the show. It's one of the things I like the most in terms of my interactions with the club. I started with Dan, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. I tried to do my best to come to after 2 months without a show due to personal occupations and stuff, but it's always good to talk about the club. Maybe it's not as dynamic as it may be in a normal season when you talk about games, analyze lineups, players, the stuff that had to do, especially this period that we talked with Dan a lot with about the ownership, which was another topic in itself and never absent in our discussions and shows. But I really hope that in the end of the show you have enjoyed it, people have enjoyed it, and thanks a lot to everyone. I find the occasion to thank everybody for the support. Hopefully smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow us in the coming streams. And hopefully the next time that we have a stream, we will have one or two signings announced, and then we can discuss from another perspective, rather than seeing them as potential signings, to official new incomings at the club. So thanks again, Trev, for being here, and as I said, hope you enjoyed and hope everyone did.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I loved it. It was a great discussion. Looking forward to it again next week. And yeah, hopefully then I think, kind of fingers crossed, we'll have Sterling wrapped up then and get a little more discussion on what that means for the squad and potentially who might be on their way out if that happens.
Yeah, thanks. So
thanks a lot.
Thanks everyone for being here, and see you next week with frankly Saturdays, and hopefully, as I said, we'll have other stuff or more concrete stuff to talk about. So thanks again, and bye.